I told my girlfriend that she's not allowed to wear the bracelet given to her by a coworker. We've been together for 7 years, and in those 7 years, we've moved 3 times for my job. I'm the first to admit that every time we move, my girlfriend always has a very hard time getting a job because has a very niche qualification. She's extremely smart and hardworking. I definitely give her that. But unfortunately, every time she does manage to find a job a few months later, we'd have to move again for mine. And the jobs that she does find doesn't have good enough salaries for her to live on her own. She tried living with a roommate once, but that scared her mentally, and she doesn't want to do that again. Now the problem. After 8 months of working cashier jobs, she finally found a job she liked, and that paid more than the cashier jobs. She was so excited. She loved the people, the work she was doing, and she stopped being upset. I could see the weight coming of her face becoming clear. She looked like a different person. But this job also doesn't pay her well enough for her to live in that city alone. She made a really good friend there, a male coworker. I didn't really have a problem with it. They didn't hang out after work. But once she gave in her resignation, things changed. All of then, suddenly he wanted to take her out to coffee and grab cocktails. Mind you, I was invited every time. She was sad at one point, where I said, why the flip would I want to go? And then I started to see the bracelets. She said it was friendship bracelets from the guy. She was honest and upfront about them. I lost my mind. I told my girlfriend that she's not allowed to wear the bracelet given to her by a coworker. Update, I told her she's not allowed to see him or wear the bracelets ever again. And she looked at me and said, I'm moving to a flipping city 4 hours away from any family, even though we live an hour from her family and she visits them as much as she could. She said we live closer to my family and that she's probably going to be seen as a free babysitter again, as she's very good with my cousin's autistic child. She then screamed at me, saying, I'm probably going into a state of deep sadness again, so give me this one ray of flipping, mooing sunshine I have left. She stormed out. She's only spoken to me a few times since then. We have moved, and we've been in the new city for 2 days now, and apart from unpacking, she's been laying in bed, scrolling on her phone, with the bracelet still on. She hasn't even begun to search for a job or anything yet, and her clothing box is still packed. It's the only box still packed. I'm worried about this guy, if she's planning to move back to her parents. I don't know, I just hate this. So am I the bad guy for taking away her one ray of sunshine? I sent my daughter to live with her father. I divorced my ex when Lana 15F was small. After a while, I met my husband, who had a son 17M from a previous marriage, and we had a baby 2F together. His son accepted me just fine. We managed to create an amazing blended family, if not for the fact that Lana wasn't a fan of the idea. She openly disrespects my husband, her stepbrother, and her little sister, and said multiple times that she doesn't consider them family. I said, okay then, you may not love them or even like, but everyone would benefit from having some mutual respect. Neither me nor my husband forced Lana into the family, but she would always start unnecessary drama, screaming and yelling that she wants to live with her father. Her daddy dearest was definitely putting those ideas in her head. Things escalated when me and my husband had to attend an important work event. We work at the same company, so we couldn't just skip it. No one of us could. My stepson had football practice that day. He's in his senior year, and he's a very successful player, so we hope he gets a scholarship, and that's why we're strict about him attending practice. I asked Lana to babysit her little sister. She outright refused, making a huge scene. Please note that I don't use her as an unpaid babysitter. In fact, I don't demand anything from her and was more than ready to add a little extra to her allowance. Her throwing a scene was the final straw. I sent my daughter to live with her father. Update. I've been dealing with her tantrums and disrespect for 3 years now, ever since I married my husband. I had enough, and as she was at school, I got in contact with my ex, packed her bags, and took them to his house. My ex was more than happy to take her in, and he picked her up from school that day. Here's the kicker. My ex lives off the grid in a very rural area. They have to run a generator, and my ex is stingy about the fuel. He has no Wi-Fi, and connection at his house is barely strong enough to browse websites, so no TikTok or Instagram. Lana has to use the outhouse, and since the warm water is sparse, she's not allowed long showers anymore. My ex is a very strict parent, and Lana managed to get her iPhone taken away and replaced with a flip phone on her first day at his place. And she actually has to do way more chores that are more complicated and time-consuming because my ex has 24-hour shifts often. Of course, she wants to come back now. My husband says I should take her back in because she learned the lesson. My ex says he'd rather keep her as he got an unpaid housemaid now, and her allowance is now his child support. I personally don't want to take her back in. I'm content with the zero amount of drama we have at home now. Lana says I'm a bad mother. I told my best friend that I'll end our friendship if she continues to see my ex. I 23F have a best friend, Mary 24F, who I have been friends with since high school. We were both friends with my ex, Jay 24M, as well. I introduced them once, me and Jay got together, and they became friends quickly. About 3 years ago, I had a messy breakup with Jay after he'd confessed that he'd been cheating on me. Mary had known that he was seeing another woman for close to 7 months before she convinced him to tell me about the affair. After telling me about the cheating, we had a fight, and he left me for the woman he'd cheated on me with. Mary was there to comfort me, reassuring me that I could do better. One day after our breakup, Jay confessed his love to Mary, who waited another 3 months to tell me about it. She admitted she was still speaking to him and was actually considering a relationship with him. But ultimately, she decided to reject him because she didn't want to betray me. She said she'd block him when I mentioned I felt uncomfortable with the situation, and I thought that that chapter of my life was over. I never ran into him, and Mary never brought him up, so I tried to move on. A week ago, Mary invited me out to lunch and came and picked me up. After we sat down at the restaurant, she said we needed to talk about something serious, which caught me off guard. I told my best friend that I'll end our friendship if she continues to see my ex update. I listened as she began a rant about how she didn't want me to feel betrayed, but she had never actually stopped speaking to Jay. She brought up everything he's been doing, all of their conversations, his recent breakups, how they were actually in a relationship, and how she was sorry to keep all this from me for so long. I just began shaking, feeling trapped without a way out because she'd insisted on picking me up, and she grabbed my arm when I tried to leave. She kept asking if I felt betrayed as I sobbed in the middle of this restaurant, and I asked her what the hell she thought. She frowned and tried to explain that it was just so hard to stop talking to her friend, and as a people-pleaser, she didn't want to hurt him by ending their friendship for me. I managed to pull out of her grasp and quickly left, calling my brother to pick me up. She has been nonstop calling me, telling me I'm overreacting, and she thought I'd be over him by now. I just can't stop feeling sick because the person who I cared about and trusted more than anyone would do this to me. I texted her and let her know that if she continued her relationship with my ex, I'd be ending our friendship and would stop speaking to her. She said I was being unfair and freaked out about how I'm an a-hole for making her choose, which is making me wonder, am I being unreasonable? I know I don't have control over who she speaks to, but why did she have to get with him of all people? I sobbed in her arms countless nights because of him, and she was just seeing him behind my back. I'm just so lost in this situation, and I don't know what to do. I moved out instead of sharing my living space, which is causing a problem for my mom and her boyfriend. My dad passed away when I 16F was like 3. We lived in a house that my grandparents own, and they agreed to let my mom and I live there rent-free. Over the years, whenever my mom dated, I tried to spend the nights she had guests over at my grandparents' house. When I was 10, my grandfather renovated the basement to make me my own kind of apartment. I have my own bathroom, kitchen, and living room to go with my bedroom. My mom met a guy last year, and it got serious. He moved in with his 2 kids, which is fine by me. My mom deserves to be happy and have someone in her life. There are 3 bedrooms upstairs, so it is perfect. 1 for them and 1 for each of his kids. Everything was going according to plan until the kids asked where I was staying. I said I lived on the basement. They made a joke about me loving in my mom's basement. I invited them down to play Mario Kart to be sociable and to show off if I'm being completely honest. I have a couch my uncle gave me and my dad's old lazy boy in the living room. The recliner is only for me and all my friends know that. The kids started complaining that it wasn't fair that I got all this room to myself. One tried sitting in my chair even after I told her that it was only for me. I settled that immediately. It's mine. After a few races where I demolished them, I said it was time for them to go back upstairs. They said no. I called my mom to come get them. I moved out instead of sharing my living space, which is causing a problem for my mom and her boyfriend. Update. Over the course of the next week, my mom started hinting that maybe my living room should be a common area. I said no. She started insisting. I said no. She has a key to my door. I never locked my door unless she had guests. I did start locking it when Dan and his kids moved in. I came home from school and found the kids in my living room. They had also gone into my room. and they were eating my snacks. That I pay for myself. I yelled and told them to GTFO. I called for my mom to explain why they were there. She said that she decided it wasn't fair that I got almost a third of the house to myself and that my TV and gaming systems should be shared. I said, fuck that. She got really upset with me and said it was a done deal, so deal with it. My grandfather and he and my uncles came and got me. And all the things that matter to me, including my recliner. He told my mom that she needed to start paying rent if I wasn't going to be living there. I have a bedroom at my grandparents' house, but I miss my area. My mom is trying to get me to go back so they can save money to get their own place. Yeah, right, I'm not that dumb. She said that I need to stop being a brat and behave like an adult. I said I was living like an adult until you let those kids onto my area without permission. She tried to say she could do whatever she wanted in her house. Sometimes I think she forgets it wasn't my dad's house and she didn't inherit it. I feel a little guilty about this because my mom is actually pretty cool and I hate that this is causing strain on her relationship. My husband admitted to trying to get me pregnant and now I'm broken. This morning, my husband, 32M, admitted that he has been trying to get me, 31F, pregnant because I am getting older. And he doesn't want me to regret my choice like those other women. I have always been clear about my boundaries. No carrying. Pregnancy terrifies me, and I've always wanted to adopt anyway. I was considering fostering before I even met my boyfriend 4 years ago. I have been trying to get a partial hysterectomy for a couple years, but my doctors have been giving me the ring around. I also admittedly second-guessed myself when I found out the majority of my family on both sides have had anesthesia awareness, too, have been in therapy for PTSD from it. So I have hesitated this past year and might decide against it. We were married in October. This only came up because I have been feeling like sick. I thought I had the flu and have only just been feeling better recently, and I told him I was going out to my friend's bachelorette. He asked if I was going to be the DD and got mad when I said no. He said I shouldn't be drinking when I'm sick. I told him I was fine. I was at him because he was being what I thought was silly, until he dropped the flipping mooing bomb and said, "What if you're pregnant?" My husband admitted to trying to get me pregnant and now I'm broken. Update. He knows I can't take any control medicine for hormonal reason. Only the copper IUD, which I got put in and removed the same day in the ER because it had shifted already and was causing me intense pain. I asked him why he thought that if his protection had broke. I was racking my brain and then he just started to cry and told me we didn't have the money for adoption and that he hadn't been using protection the last few times we'd had it. He is still crying. I'm sitting on the toilet. I don't know what to say. He told me everything he's read is that women regret not having children. He said he doesn't want to look at our adopted kids and resent them for not being our own. I'm in disbelief. I don't know what to do. I think he genuinely believes he was doing me a service, but I'm not sure because he's also crying. It honestly sounds like he is having a breakdown. I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong for putting him through this stress, but he shouldn't put so much pressure on me. Surely I might divorce him. This is a massive betrayal. I am distraught. How do I navigate this? Is this something that can be navigated? I literally thought this man was the love of my life. I just told my sister how stupidly happy we were yesterday. My girlfriend insists that I treat her like a princess 24/7. How can I make her understand it's hurting my mental state? I have been with my girlfriend for a year and a half and proposed to her recently. She has always had this sort of cute kid way of talking, but now it's becoming increasingly irritating. She has said in front of my friends and parents that she wants to be treated like a princess 24/7, and says things after that sometimes along the lines of, "And I will never think of myself lower that than ever again," which is fine. I love her, so I treat her very well and respectfully like any women should be treated. But now that this proposal has happened and I'm looking at kids and spending the rest of my life with her, and in doing that I'm also starting to think that, hey, she is an adult, not a princess, and I shouldn't bow down to her and give up on putting my side of the argument because she's crying and saying, "Why am I making her feel this way?" These are very benign arguments, and it's usually something that you don't need to cry about all the time. And to top it all off, she's getting this awful diva mentality that if I did anything close to that as a male, it would be 100% considered hurtful. She absolutely refused to work and recently said that she wants to be looked after 100% of the time, as it's the man's job to treat her bubby like a queen. And she says these things not in a cute sort of way, but like a demanding sort of way. My girlfriend insists that I treat her like a princess. 24/7 update. How can I make her understand it's hurting my mental state? I have no idea how much more I can take. She has genuinely started acting like a child or a princess, in her words. To make things worse, she's now wearing plastic tiaras and fluffy Ugg boots all the time now, is making it really hard to see myself spending the rest of my life with her. Keep in mind, this just started happening after she caught up with her old friends who are very much the same. I'm lost, guys. How can I put this across to her that she's a goddamn 250 or so pound, 38-year-old woman and not a child anymore? Maybe I'm being out of line, but I swear this isn't how it's supposed to be. Saying it's the man's job to do these cliché things. But if I ever dared suggest to her to do some cleaning and cooking around the house, then I'm somehow a chauvinistic pig for saying that perhaps if I have to look after her princess, then she may have to treat me like a king, which I think is ridiculous, by the way. How do I get my girlfriend out of this midlife crisis?